Hello, this is Unit 1, Lesson 9. Don't forget to get down your objective. Today's objective is to compute sums and differences of decimals. I'm super excited to be moving on from fractions and heading into this portion of the unit on decimals. Let's get down to very important definitions. First, def number 1, the word sums. Sums are just what we call the solutions to addition problems. You probably remember that from elementary school. So 6 plus 4, the sum of 6 plus 4 would be 10. Definition number 2, differences. Differences are what we call the solutions to subtraction problems. So the difference between 10 subtract 6 would be 4. All right. Let's think about this question. Can you describe circumstances when it would be easier to add and subtract mixed numbers by converting them to decimals first? Well, there are two ways where it probably would be easier. One would be when we have fractions with large denominators. In these situations, it'll be really hard if you had two big denominators to find a common denominator. And if you remember from when we were studying fractions, when you add and subtract fractions, you have to have a common denominator. Well, with larger denominators, it's going to be harder to find a common denominator. Another circumstance would be when dealing with regrouping. Regrouping is a lot easier when you're dealing with decimals rather than when you're dealing with fractions or mixed numbers. So it's probably easier to go ahead and convert them to decimals and then get your sum or your difference. Vic number 1. One of the main things I want you to understand is that all fractions and mixed numbers can be written as decimals. Decimals are just another way to express a number. All right, let's look at example 1. We have 25 and 3/10, a mixed number, plus 376 and 77/100, another mixed number. We call the two numbers that we're going to add together add-ins. That's a very important vocabulary word. So you do want to get that down. That add-ins are the numbers being added. So in this problem, my two add-ins would be 25 and 3/10 and 376 and 77/100. All right, the steps to solving this problem. One of the first things I want you to get used to is estimating your answer. All right, and we'll get to that in a little while, but we want to estimate our answer by rounding. So first, we can round 25 and 3/10. Well, that's about 25 if I round it to the nearest whole number. So I'll just round it to the nearest whole number. 376 and 77/100. Well, with 77/100, I'm closer to one whole. So I will round 376 and 77/100 to 377. All right. So when I estimate, my answer should be about 25 plus 377, which is about 402. All right. So that's just an estimate. That's my educated guess. Now, when we convert them to decimals, when we convert our mixed numbers into decimals, if you notice 3/10, we can write that as a decimal because this decimal place is in the tenths place. That lets me know that it's 3/10. And we read these two numbers exactly the same. This is 25 and 3/10. As a decimal, it is also 25 and 3/10. We can do the same thing with our other add-in. 376 and 77 hundredths. This decimal place is the hundredths place. All right, so it correlates with our 100 denominator in our problem. All right, when we add decimals, anytime we're adding or subtracting decimals, we want to make sure that we line up our decimal points. So if you notice, in this problem, I lined up my decimal points first. And then I placed the digits according to place value. In my first add-in, I didn't have a hundredths place, so I left it blank. You can also put a zero placeholder to help you remember that. I lined up my tenths place, I lined up my decimals, and then my ones place, my tens place, and my hundredths place. All right. When I add the two numbers together, I get 402 and 7 hundredths. All right. The last thing I want to ask myself is this number reasonable? Is this answer, which is my exact answer, is my exact answer reasonable or not? Well, if I look at my estimate, my educated guess was 402. My real answer was 402 and 7 hundredths. These two are really close, so I can say yes, this is a reasonable answer. Vic number 2. Always round and estimate first to be sure that your answer was reasonable. So just like we went over in example 1, we want to make sure that every time we're dealing with either mixed numbers or decimals, we round our answer first. So let's look at example 2. I have 382 and 3 tenths, subtract 191 and 87 hundredths. Well, my first step is to estimate. I know that 382 and 3 tenths is real close to just 382. 191 and 87 hundredths, well, this is almost another whole. So I would round this to 192. When I add those two together, I get an estimated answer of 190. Now this isn't my exact answer, it's just my educated guess. This way I can go back at the end and check to make sure my answer is reasonable. Alright, our second step is to convert our mixed numbers into decimals. So 382 and 3 tenths. Remember, this is the tenths place. Subtract 191 and 87 hundredths. Next, the last step to get my exact answer would be to line up my decimals. So I will go ahead and draw my decimal points, and then I will line up everything according to place value. So I have 382 and 3 tenths. I have 191 and 87 hundredths. I'm going to put a placeholder here, a placeholder 0. That way it saves my spot. And I will just subtract normally. And I get my difference, my exact answer would be 190 and 43 hundredths. Now remember, this is my exact answer. All right. Now let's check to make sure that is reasonable. Our estimation was 190. Our exact answer was 190 and 43 hundredths. So it's reasonable. Let's look at example 3, and this is our last example. 594 and 7/25 plus 89 and 37 hundredths. Now this one is a little bit trickier than our first two examples because here we do not have tenths or hundredths placed. So we have to make an equivalent fraction in order to change our denominator and our first add-in to hundredths, which is easy if you remember back to what we did last week. All right, so first I will rewrite this problem as 494 and 7/25 plus 89 and 37 hundredths. Now here is real easy with our second add-in. It's really easy to convert this into a decimal because it's in hundredths. So we know this will be 89 and 37 hundredths. It's a little trickier with our first add-in. To get hundredths here, I need to multiply my numerator and denominator by 4, because 25 times 4 will get me 100 and 7 times 4 will get me 28. So this mixed number can be rewritten as 594 and 28 over 100, and when I convert that into a decimal I get 594 and 28 hundredths. All right. So first we want to estimate. When I estimate, 594 and 28 hundredths is closer to 594 than it is to 595. Plus 89 and 37 hundredths is closer to 89 than it is to 90. So I would round that to 89. When I estimate my answer, if I do an estimate, I'll get 594 plus 89. This will be 13, 10, 18, and 6. My estimated answer would be 683. All right. Now to get my exact answer, I have to remember to line up my decimals. So I'll take my first add-in, 594 and 28 hundredths, and I line up by place value. The 8 is in the tens place. The 9 is in the ones place. I line up my decimals. My 3 is in the tenths place, and my 7 is in the hundredths place. Notice how I line everything up according to place value. And now I add like normal. 8 plus 7 is 15. 3 plus 2 is 5, plus another makes 6. My decimal just drops like a rock. It just drops straight down. Your decimal does not change. It drops straight down. 4 plus 9 will give me 13. 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 8 is 18, and 5 plus 1 is 6. So my exact answer is 683 and 65 hundredths. All right. When I check to see if that's reasonable, I'll see that I got really close to my estimate, so I can trust that my answer is correct. All right. Now, if you want to earn 2 bonus dojos, I want you to complete this on a separate sheet of paper and bring it in with your notes tomorrow. Only thing I want you to do is estimate your sum or difference. There's only 2 problems, and I included an example to help you. Here in the example, I had 23 and 1/5 plus 45 and 7/8. I just estimated that 23 and 1/5 was about 23 plus 45 and 7/8. I almost have another whole here, so I rounded up to 46. When I added those together, I got 69. That's all I want you to do, is give me an estimated answer for both problem 1, problem 2. If you do that, I'll give you an extra dojo. All right. See you in class on Tuesday. All right. Bye, y'all.